Within the Ezio Trilogy, there are a total of 19 named characters that are assassins and have some information in the lore about them. Just like my series going over the Templars, in this video I will explain the lore and stories of all of them. I do quickly want to say that many of the Auditores are assassins and they will be featured in this video, but they will be near the end as I'll be using the segments from my previous video that was about the Auditores. This way, if you have already watched that video, then you won't need to sit through it again. Anyway, with that said, let us begin. Paola was born in 1438, and when she was just 8 years old, her parents were killed at sea, leaving her and her sister Renetta completely on their own. Faced with the choice between joining a convent or a brothel, Paola rejected both and chose instead to survive on the streets. After spending nearly 20 years fending for herself, Paola was arrested for killing a city guard, but she was defended in court by Giovanni Auditore, who successfully argued that she had acted in self-defense. Following this, Paola joined the assassins and later founded a brothel called La Rosa Colta. The establishment served as a safe haven for women who had been forced to live on the streets. During this time, her sister Renetta became a living servant for the Auditore family. In 1476, Giovanni and 2 of his sons were executed by the Templars after being falsely accused of treason against Florence. Annetta brought Giovanni's wife, Maria, and daughter, Claudia, to Paola for protection, and they were soon joined by Giovanni's remaining son, Ezio. Paola later trained Ezio in how to stay hidden from the city guards as he prepared to take revenge on Uberto Alberti, the man responsible for his family's execution. She then sent him to Leonardo da Vinci to repair Giovanni's broken hidden blade. After Ezio used the repaired blade to kill Uberto, he returned to Paola, who advised him on how to divert suspicion away from himself. In 1488, Paola, now 50 years old, joined the other assassins in Venice to intercept the Apple of Eden. Their goal was to ambush at the moment Rodrigo Borgia came to collect it from his men. When they arrived, the assassins found Ezio already battling Rodrigo and his guards. While Ezio took the lead, the other assassins assisted him, whilst Paola and 2 others waited on the sidelines. Later that night, Ezio was formally inducted into the assassin order by the group, with Paola among them. In 1497, during Savonarola's bonfire of the Vanities, where he forced the people of Florence to destroy anything representing Renaissance progress, Paola helped lead the citizens into open revolt, while Ezio assassinated Savonarola's lieutenants. By 1499, Paola travelled to the Villa Auditore to assist in planning the assassination of Rodrigo Borgia. In Rome, she and the other assassins distracted the city guard, allowing Ezio to infiltrate the Sistine Chapel. After these events, Paola stayed in contact with the Auditore family, growing especially close to Claudia. By 1512, Claudia confirmed that Paola was still alive at 74 years old and serving as one of the leaders of the assassin order. Gilberto, better known as La Volpe or the Fox, was the leader of the Florentine and Roman thieves guilds. Very little is known about his early life, but countless legends surrounded him and his skill as a thief. One story even claimed he managed to rob the papal carriage without being noticed by anyone, including the Pope himself, who was inside of the carriage. By 1467, the myths had only grown. It was said that on a single night in Florence, La Volpe was spotted on the rooftops of the Palazzo della Signoria, the Palazzo Medici, and the Basilica di Santa Croce all at once. Rumours also painted him as immortal, with striking violet eyes supposedly capable of seeing through walls. In 1478, La Volpe learned that Ezio had returned to Florence to assassinate the Templar Francesco de Pazzi. Leonardo da Vinci told Ezio that the Fox could help him, leading Ezio to search for La Volpe in the Mercato Vecchio. While there, a thief pickpocketed Ezio and tried to escape. Ezio caught up to him only for La Volpe to step in, returning the stolen money, and offered his help on the condition that Ezio could keep up with his free-running skills. La Volpe then guided Ezio to Santa Maria Novella, where the Pazzi conspirators were set to meet later that day. He later waited near the sewers where Ezio emerged after spying on the Templars. Ezio revealed their plan to assassinate the Medici during High Mass and seize control of Florence. La Volpe warned that Lorenzo de' Medici's death would be disastrous, as he was a key ally of the assassins, but Ezio promised he would stop it. La Volpe continued to support the assassins in the years that followed. He was present in 1488 when the assassins gathered in Venice to obtain the Apple of Eden, and witnessed Ezio's induction into the order. In 1497, he also helped Paola rally the citizens during the bonfire of the Vanities. In 1499, La Volpe met with the assassins in Monteriggioni to help plan the assassination of Rodrigo Borgia. He He later travelled to Rome with them, where he and the others distracted Borgia forces, creating an opening for Ezio to strike. La Volpe was not present during the attack on Monteriggioni, but in the aftermath he travelled to Rome to help dismantle the Borgia's control over the city. When Ezio later found him there, La Volpe had become the leader of the local thieves guild. With Ezio's financial support, the two established La Volpe Addormentata, a thieves' headquarters disguised as an inn. Unlike his time in Florence, however, La Volpe refused to work with Machiavelli, openly accusing him of betraying the assassin cause. La Volpe believed Machiavelli was responsible for an attack on the Roman thieves, and suspected that he had sided with the Borgia, especially since Machiavelli had left Monteriggioni the night before it was besieged. Despite his distrust, La Volpe agreed to help the assassins after Ezio assisted him in rescuing several of his men from Borgia guards. His suspicions only deepened after Ezio's attempt to assassinate Cesare and Rodrigo Borgia failed. Cesare had left Rome earlier than expected, and Rodrigo was nowhere to be found, directly contradicting Machiavelli's claim that Rodrigo never left the Castello. Matters worsened when several members of the Thieves Guild were exposed and hunted by the Borgia, forcing Ezio and La Volpe to rescue them. This left the guild unable to help stop Micheletto Carella's attempted assassination of Pietro Rossi. Ezio eventually uncovered the real traitor, a Venetian thief named Paganino, who had stayed behind during the siege of Monteriggioni. Realising the danger, Ezio rushed to stop La Volpe from killing Machiavelli. He arrived just in time, presenting La Volpe with documents that proved Machiavelli's innocence. Understanding his mistake, La Volpe lowered his weapon. From that point on, La Volpe's attitude toward Machiavelli changed completely. He greeted him warmly, treating him as a trusted friend and ally. The last known events involving La Volpe include his presence at Claudia Auditore's induction into the Assassin Order, as well as his participation in the final conflict against Cesare Borgia's remaining followers before Cesare's arrest. Antonio was born in 1443 into a poor family. His father worked as a cobbler while his mother served as a maid for the Bellini family. In between apprenticing with his father, Antonio taught himself how to read and write. Despite his intelligence, he was denied entry to the University of Padua because of his low social status. He applied to several other schools across Italy, but each time he was rejected. Coming to terms with the fact that hard labour would never allow him to achieve his ambitions, a disillusioned and increasingly bitter Antonio turned to theft. Around 1469, he even robbed the estate of the University of Padua's rector. Not long after, Antonio found his way into the Assassin Order and went on to establish the local thieves guild. He and his fellow thieves agreed to steal only from the largely corrupt Venetian nobility, viewing their work more as a business rather than a criminal operation. In 1475, an orphan named Rosa tried to pickpocket Antonio. Instead of turning her over to the guards, he chose to take her in and train her as his pupil. In 1480, Ezio arrived in Venice and stumbled upon a failed attempt by the thieves to assassinate Emilio Barbarigo at the Palazzo della Seta. During the chaos, Ezio helped by getting Rosa to safety. Once Antonio learned of Ezio's presence in the city, he revealed that he already knew of Ezio's actions through the other thieves guilds in Florence and Tuscany. He praised Ezio's accomplishments, though he remarked that his methods were still a bit unpolished. Antonio was already aware of Ezio's plan to kill Emilio and explained that they would need to start over, carefully and quietly preparing a new assassination. He also warned Ezio about 3 members of the guild who had secretly been feeding information to Emilio, suggesting they be dealt with first. Ezio agreed and eliminated the traitors, then continued helping the guild with various tasks while they finalised their plans. The scheme unfolded over 4 years. Once everything was in place, Ezio's final task was to eliminate the rooftop archers guarding the palazzo. He then met with Antonio, Rosa and Ugo before infiltrating the building, killing Emilio and the guards inside. Afterward, Ezio and Rosa opened the doors to let Antonio in. With Emilio dead, Antonio ordered his thieves to return the stolen goods to the local civilians and rewarded Ezio for his help. Ezio also mentioned that Emilio had been in contact with someone he didn't recognise. In response, Antonio gave him a name to follow up on: Carlo Grimaldi. Ezio later uncovered that Carlo Grimaldi was planning to assassinate Giovanni Mocenigo using poison and replace him with the Templar Marco Barbarigo. He immediately went to warn Antonio, and together they tried to find a way into the Doge's palace. Despite carefully watching every possible entrance, they couldn't identify a viable point of entry. Antonio declared the situation hopeless, remarking that only birds could get into the building. This offhand comment sparked an idea for Ezio, who decided to seek help from his close friend Leonardo da Vinci. Not long after, Antonio met with Ezio again and was introduced to Leonardo. Clearly worried, Antonio explained that Carlo already had the poison, meaning they had very little time to stop him. The plan they settled on involved Ezio clearing the guards stationed on the rooftops across Venice, while Antonio sent his thieves to light a series of fires throughout the city. Once the guards were dealt with, Ezio regrouped with Antonio and Leonardo on a rooftop and saw the fires burning in the distance. With time running out, Antonio expressed his hope that the plan would succeed, and Ezio immediately took off in Leonardo's flying machine. Over time, Antonio and Leonardo grew into close friends, and on one occasion Leonardo was able to pass along Antonio's location to Ezio. Ezio tracked Antonio down at a brothel, and when he arrived, he removed his Carnivale mask to reveal himself, prompting Antonio to introduce him to Teodora. The three of them then discussed how to deal with the new doge, Marco Barbarigo. They agreed that Ezio would need to get access to the doge's Carnivale party, which meant winning a golden mask by competing in a series of festival games. As they made their way to the event, the trio talked through the plan. Ezio successfully completed all three challenges, but despite winning, he was denied the mask. Back at the brothel, Antonio and Teodora discovered that Silvio Barbarigo had bribed the judge during Ezio's duel with Dante Moreau. Soon after, a courtesan arrived with news that Dante was on his way to the party. Ezio initially planned to kill Dante and take the mask, but Antonio advised against it. He warned that Marco Barbarigo was paranoid enough to cancel the party immediately, and suggested stealing the mask instead. Ezio left to carry out the theft, leaving Antonio waiting. When Ezio returned successful, Antonio admitted that he had underestimated him. Ezio later went to Antonio, hoping to track down Silvio and Dante. During this meeting, Antonio introduced him to Marco Barbarigo's brother, Agostino Barbarigo, and explained that Silvio and Dante had fled into the city's arsenale. Realising he would need to seek out support of his own, Ezio decided to build a personal army. In response, Antonio advised him to seek out the seasoned mercenary Bartolomeo di Aviano. Antonio later stood alongside the other assassins during the struggle for the Apple of Eden in 1488 and witnessed Ezio's formal induction into the Assassin Order. In 1491, Antonio was approached by Luis de Santagel with a request for assistance. Rather than taking the job himself, Antonio directed the minister to Ezio, describing him as the deadliest man in Italia. He later explained to Ezio that Louis was seeking protection for both himself and his friend, Christopher Columbus. Ezio initially refused, but changed his mind after learning that Louis planned to meet with Rodrigo Borgia in Venice. Ezio left to help Columbus, and when he returned, he informed Antonio that the supposed meeting had actually been a trap. Afterward, Antonio told Ezio where Louis was staying, prompting Ezio to seek him out in the Garden District in case things went wrong. Antonio also arranged for Louis and Columbus to make contact with the Thieves Guild in Barcelona before Ezio travelled there himself to deal with the Inquisition. Antonio was present at Monteriggioni in 1499 to formulate a plan to assassinate Rodrigo, and then he travelled to Rome with the others to create distractions to make things easier for Ezio. Antonio wasn't present during the events of Brotherhood, but it is likely that he stayed in Venice to oversee the Thieves Guild there. The last known details about Antonio place him in Venice in 1509 at the age of 66. At that time, he helped Ezio by assisting in the plan to lure Francesco Rizzo into the city so he could be assassinated. Antonio supported the operation by supplying Ezio with key intelligence and a crossbow. Around 1460, a Venetian nobleman paid a prostitute for her services, resulting in the birth of Rosa. Unable to care for the child, the woman abandoned her, leaving Rosa to grow up on the streets of Venice. When Rosa was 15, she tried to steal from a man she didn't know at the time. This man happened to be Antonio. She was caught, but instead of turning her over to the guards, Antonio, the leader of the Venetian Thieves Guild, chose to take her in as his pupil. During her training, he quickly recognised her natural talent, especially her exceptional agility. In 1481, Rosa and several other thieves attempted an attack on the Palazzo della Seta, where the corrupt Emilio Barbarigo controlled Venice's merchants. While the others distracted the guards, Rosa began climbing the building. Unfortunately though, one of the rooftop archers struck her leg with an arrow, sending her crashing to the ground. Badly injured and unable to try again, Rosa called out to Ezio for help. Despite being pickpocketed by her earlier, Ezio agreed to assist and protected her as they made their way toward the canals. Rosa managed to keep going for a while, but the pain from her wound eventually overwhelmed her and she collapsed. Unable to go any further, Rosa was carried by Ezio until they ran into a fellow thief. Ugo placed her into a nearby gondola and managed to get her back to the guild, while Ezio stayed with them to deal with the archers in the area and keep them safe. Once they arrived at the guild, Rosa angrily told Ugo to fetch Antonio. Though her anger quickly faded as exhaustion set in, Ezio carried her inside and laid her on the table just as Antonio arrived. He promptly pulled the arrow from her thigh before having her taken to a doctor to treat her wound. During her recovery, Rosa taught Ezio how to reach higher ledges while climbing. She challenged him to race up the Basilica di Santa Maria Gloriosa within a time limit, a challenge Ezio completed without issue. 4 years later, in September of 1485, Rosa helped Ezio and the Thieves Guild launch a second attack on the Palazzo della Seta. Ezio eliminated the rooftop archers, allowing Rosa and the others to disguise themselves as guards and take their positions. After Ezio assassinated Emilio Barbarigo, Rosa and the thieves took out the remaining guards, and she and Ezio opened the Palazzo gates for Antonio. In 1488, on Ezio's birthday, Rosa gave him a valuable gift, a shipping manifest from the Arsenale that detailed the arrival of a Templar ship the following day. In 1504, Claudia Auditore, Ezio's sister and the Madame of the Rosa in Fiore brothel in Rome, stepped down from her position after being attacked by Borgia loyalists. Not long after, Antonio was contacted by his fellow thief and assassin La Volpe, who asked whether Rosa would be willing to take over Claudia's role as the Madame. Rosa accepted the offer and relocated to Rome. The last known information about Rosa is that by 1512, she had risen to become a member of the Italian Assassin Council at the age of around 52. Teodora was born in Venice to a family of jewellers who owned their own shop, where she was apprenticed to her mother as a shop assistant. Customers quickly took notice of her beauty and charm, and in 1462, one visitor buying diamond earrings for his wife, Margherita, became so taken with the 12-year-old Teodora that he reportedly left regretting his marriage. 5 years later, on the 26th of November, court records show that Teodora, then 17, was caught having an affair with a married man. When the man's wife discovered the relationship and alerted the authorities, Teodora's parents acted quickly to avoid scandal. As punishment, they sent her to a convent, where she was expected to spend the rest of her life in prayer and quiet reflection. By 1473, at the age of 23, Teodora had grown disillusioned with convent life, finding it often at odds with her personal beliefs. She left the convent and nailed a letter to its door, describing life as a nun as earthly and sterile. She ended the message by expressing her own philosophy, writing that only in partnership with another can one truly enter the arms of God. That same year, Teodora founded the Rose of Virtue, a brothel in Venice's Dorsoduro d'Oro district. It was staffed entirely by former nuns who shared her views. Despite repeated attempts by the Pope to pressure the Venetian council into shutting it down, the establishment remained open until 1516. Although no longer part of the Catholic Church, Teodora still considered herself a nun, practicing her own unique form of the faith. At some point during this time, she was also introduced to and inducted into the Assassin Order. In 1486, Teodora was introduced to Ezio by her fellow assassin Antonio. She helped guide Ezio in his mission to assassinate the Templar Doge Marco Barbarigo, explaining that the only way to reach him was to win a golden mask that granted entry to Marco's private Carnevale party. Ezio competed in the games and won every match fairly, but despite this, the mask was awarded to Marco's bodyguard, Dante Moreau. In response, Teodora and Antonio advised Ezio to use Teodora's courtesans to distract Dante, creating an opening for Ezio to steal the mask. The plan worked, and Ezio was able to enter the party. Inside, he met with Teodora again, who offered the help of the girls to keep the guards off his trail. When Marco finally appeared, Ezio assassinated him and later returned to the Rose of Virtue. Once there, Ezio attempted to charm Teodora, but she quickly shut him down and instructed her courtesans to see to him instead. Teodora was present in 1488 when the assassins united to ambush Rodrigo Borgia, though she remained on the sidelines alongside Paola. She also took part in creating distractions during the events in Rome in 1499. Afterward, she returned to Venice, where she continued to lead the courtesans. In 1516, the Rose of Virtue was destroyed in a fire started by an angry bishop, who had demanded the services of one of the girls for free. The Roman Catholic Church publicly declared the fire as an act of God. Teodora's ultimate fate is unknown, though she would have been 66 years old at the time. Bartolomeo was born in the town of Alviano to Francesco di Alviano and Isabella degli Atti in 1555. He was also related to several notable figures, including his cousins Fabio Orsini and Niccolo di Pigliano. At some point, Bartolomeo joined the Assassin Order and eventually established himself in Venice's Castello district, where he lived and led the city's mercenary forces. By 1486, the Templar Silvio Barbarigo had seized control of the Castello district, capturing Bartolomeo along with most of his men. Ezio later intervened, freeing Bartolomeo and fighting alongside him back to his headquarters. Once there, the two eliminated Silvio's remaining forces and reclaimed the stronghold. After recovering his trusted weapon Bianca, Bartolomeo asked Ezio to rescue several mercenaries who had been taken prisoner by Silvio's thugs. When Ezio returned with the rescued men, Bartolomeo instructed him to place mercenaries throughout the district to create enough unrest to take it back. After positioning the last of the men, he climbed the tallest tower in the area and launched a flare, signalling the start of the uprising. From the tower, Ezio spotted Bartolomeo struggling in a fight against Dante Moreau and Silvio's forces. He rushed over to help, and together they cut down most of the enemy. As Ezio moved to finish Dante, Dante broke off the fight and fled toward the Arsenale. Bartolomeo urged Ezio to pursue him, knowing that he would likely lead him straight to Silvio. As expected, Dante and Silvio attempted to escape by ship to Cyprus, but Ezio caught up to them and assassinated both. With the district freed from Silvio's rule, Bartolomeo thanked Ezio for his help and the two went their separate ways. 2 years later, Bartolomeo joined several other assassins in an effort to seize the Apple of Eden from Rodrigo Borgia. Around 1493, he travelled to Rome, where he set up a mercenary guild that oversaw the city's fight clubs and arenas. During this time, he recruited the gladiator Corvo Antonelli into his company, before eventually bringing him into the Brotherhood. In 1496, Bartolomeo fought alongside the Orsini family against the Borgia, who were trying to take control of Orsini territory. Although the Borgia steadily wore down his resources, reducing his holdings just to 3 fortresses, Bartolomeo refused to give up. When Cesare Borgia believed that victory was assured, he cut off Bartolomeo's supplies completely. However, Carlo Orsini arrived just in time with reinforcements, and he even managed to wound Cesare across the face. The following year, in 1497, Bartolomeo suffered a personal loss when his first wife, Bartolomeo Orsini, was killed during a Borgia attack. Later that same year, he remarried, taking Pantasilea Baglioni as his second wife. By 1499, Bartolomeo and his mercenaries were once again active in Rome, creating large-scale diversions across the city. These distractions tied up much of the Papal Guard, giving Ezio the opportunity he needed to infiltrate the Vatican. In 1500, Bartolomeo and his wife Pantasilea relocated to Rome, turning the Caserma di Aviano into their new base of operations. That same year, he reunited with Ezio, who helped him liberate the surrounding region from Borgia influence. In return, Ezio wanted Bartolomeo to track down the whereabouts of Rodrigo and Cesare Borgia. Once they were located, Bartolomeo met with the other assassins on Tiber Island to help plan their next moves. 3 years later, Bartolomeo was still locked in conflict with Baron de Villars. When Ezio met with him again to discuss eliminating the French commander, their discussion was interrupted by news of a surprise French attack. Fighting side by side, Bartolomeo, Ezio and the mercenaries successfully defended the barracks. After the battle, they regrouped at the main gate, where they spotted Octavian signalling from the field. The Baron demanded Bartolomeo's surrender in exchange for the life of Pantasilea. This made Bartolomeo furious, so he hurled insults at Octavian and gave chase on horseback as the French army withdrew. When he and Ezio reached the French camp at the Castro Pretoria, they realised it was too well fortified to assault directly. Bartolomeo resolved to surrender himself, hoping that the French would spare his wife. Ezio, however, proposed a different plan. They returned to the barracks and disguised Bartolomeo's mercenaries as French soldiers, staging Bartolomeo as a captured prisoner. After Bartolomeo eagerly agreed, Ezio obtained French armour by silently eliminating several guards. Disguised as a French captain, Ezio then escorted the fake battalion straight into the enemy camp without raising any suspicion. When they confronted Octavian, Bartolomeo openly threatened him and demanded Pantasilea's release. Octavian dismissed him, sneering that savages never learn, and raised his weapon to kill her. Acting instantly, Ezio fired his hidden gun, signalling the mercenaries to reveal themselves. Chaos broke out, during which Ezio assassinated Octavian and freed Pantasilea. Now that she was reunited with Bartolomeo, she thanked him, calling him her prince, before they all returned safely to the barracks. Later that year, Bartolomeo joined the other assassins in the final battle against the remaining followers of Cesare Borgia at the gates of Rome. After the last of them were defeated, he witnessed Cesare's arrest at the hands of his cousin, Fabio Orsini. In late 1503, Bartolomeo entered the service of Ferdinand II of Spain, and played a decisive role in the Spanish victory at the Battle of Garigliano. He fought alongside Prospero Colonna and his cousin Fabio Orsini, who later died from a head wound sustained during the conflict. In 1507, Bartolomeo was rehired by the Republic of Venice, this time alongside Niccolo Orsini. The following year, he defeated the forces of Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, and the Venetian Republic rewarded Bartolomeo by granting him control over the city. By 1509, Bartolomeo and his cousin, Niccolo di Pigliano, led Venetian forces against the French at the Battle of Agnadello, a village that was known to house a Shroud of Eden. Acting without authorization from Orsini, Bartolomeo launched an early attack. He was severely wounded but managed to recover enough to rally his troops. The local villagers supported him by providing supplies, weapons from their blacksmiths, and even recruits. Despite these efforts, French forces eventually overwhelmed his men. Bartolomeo was captured and the battle ended in a devastating defeat for Venice. In 1510, Ezio visited Bartolomeo in Ostia and asked him for help travelling to Bari, where Ezio planned to begin his journey to Mashaf in Syria in search of Altair's library. Glad to see Ezio back in action, Bartolomeo accompanied him to Bari before the two went their separate ways. In 1513, following the Franco-Venetian alliance against the Duke of Milan, Bartolomeo fought under French commander Louis, who was later defeated at Vicenza by Ramon de Cardona, the Spanish viceroy of Naples. Bartolomeo later recaptured and sacked Pordenone, which had once again fell under Holy Roman imperial control. He went on to play a major role in the French victory at the Battle of Marignano in September of 1515, where he led just 300 knights against Swiss mercenaries. Afterward, he successfully took Bergamo, but died later that year in October while besieging Gadi, at the age of 60. Venice honoured Bartolomeo with a grand funeral ceremony, bringing his body home and laying him to rest in the Church of Santo Stefano, near his former headquarters. Niccolo was born in Florence in 1469, the first son and third child of the lawyer Bernardo di Niccolo Machiavelli and his wife Bartolomeo di Stefano Nelli. He was educated at home by his father, who taught him grammar, rhetoric and Latin. From a young age, Niccolo was also trained and inducted into the assassin order. In 1488, at just 19 years old, Niccolo joined a group of assassins in Venice as they attempted to seize the apple of Eden from Rodrigo Borgia. While most of the assassins rushed to support Ezio, Niccolo observed the battle from a distance alongside Paola and Teodora. After Rodrigo's guards were killed and the Templar leader was driven off, Niccolo introduced himself to Ezio and revealed that everyone present was an assassin, something Ezio did not know until then. Niccolo travelled with Ezio to take the Apple of Eden to Forli, but when they arrived at the outskirts, they discovered that the city was under siege by the Orsi brothers. Once inside, Ezio, Caterina and Niccolo fought their way to the Rocca di Ravodino. Afterward, Ezio left the Apple of Eden in Caterina's care while he went to rescue her children. When Ezio returned to the fortress, Niccolo informed him that the apple had been stolen. He sent Ezio after Cecco Orsi, who was fleeing with it, and Ezio managed to assassinate Cecco, but was badly wounded in the process, allowing the Apple of Eden to fall in the hands of the monk Girolamo Savonarola. In 1497, Niccolo met Ezio again in Florence, and told him that Savonarola had seized control of the city using the power of the Apple of Eden. Ezio reasoned that eliminating Savonarola's 9 lieutenants would weaken his hold. Niccolo relayed this plan to fellow assassins La Volpe and Paola. In December of 1499, Niccolo gathered with some of the highest ranking Italian assassins at the Villa Auditore to discuss the location of the vault, as well as going over the plan to assassinate Rodrigo Borgia. He later returned to hear Ezio's account of what had happened inside of the vault. When Niccolo learned that Ezio had spared Rodrigo's life, he stormed off to Rome in anger. The following morning, Monteregione was attacked by the Papal army under the command of Rodrigo's son, Cesare Borgia. Niccolo's sudden departure just before the assault raised suspicions in La Volpe, who began to believe that Niccolo might be secretly working with the Borgia. During the attack, Mario was killed, and Niccolo stepped in to reorganise the shaken assassin order, establishing their base on Tiber Island in Rome. Ezio soon set out for Rome as well, but collapsed along the way due to the gunshot wound he had sustained during the siege. Niccolo brought him to a woman named Margherita de Campi in the Roman countryside to recover, asking her to tell Ezio to meet him at the mausoleum of Augustus once he was able. When Ezio arrived, Niccolo briefed him on the corruption gripping Rome and gave him money to buy new equipment. He also pointed Ezio toward the followers of Romulus, whom he suspected were aligned with the Borgia, and showed him a quicker way to travel through the city using the sewer system. Together they used one of these tunnels to reach their hideout, which had been provided by their ally Fabio Orsini. After Ezio left to rebuild the city's underground network, Niccolo used his contacts to uncover the identities of several Templar agents terrorising Rome. Once Ezio had strengthened ties with the underground and freed Caterina Sforza from captivity, he returned to Niccolo to discuss recruiting new assassins. Although Niccolo was sceptical at first, he eventually agreed and allowed Ezio to train the Brotherhood's first new recruits. By 1503, La Volpe believed he had gathered enough evidence to prove that Niccolo was secretly working for the Borgia, and urged Ezio to do what needs to be done, threatening to act himself if he did not do it. Ezio, however, trusted Niccolo and refused to believe he was a traitor, and so he chose not to kill him. Instead of Ezio taking action, La Volpe himself went to Tiber Island to assassinate Niccolo. Just in time, Ezio uncovered the truth, that the real traitor was one of La Volpe's own thieves, and managed to warn him only moments before he struck Niccolo with a dagger. Over the previous 3 years, Niccolo had come to realise that Ezio was far better suited to lead the assassin order. As a result, following Claudia Auditore's initiation into the Brotherhood, Niccolo formally placed Ezio as the head of the Italian assassins, and bestowed upon him the title of mentor. When Ezio questioned this sudden decision, Niccolo admitted that he had always supported him from the shadows. In return, Ezio named Niccolo his most trusted advisor. Not long after the ceremony, Ezio and Niccolo, alongside the rest of the assassins, confronted Cesare Borgia as he made one final attempt to reclaim power. Fighting in the Piazza del Popolo, the assassins defeated the remaining Borgia guards and ensured Cesare's arrest by Fabio Orsini and his forces. After Rodrigo Borgia was killed by his own son, Cesare was imprisoned by the newly elected Pope in the Castel Sant'Angelo. Following a failed escape attempt in 1504, Cesare was transferred to another prison, and the Pope refused to disclose its location, even to Ezio. With no clear leads, Ezio and Niccolo set out to track Cesare themselves. They questioned Giulia Farnese, Charlotte Diabre, and Vanozza dei Catene, but none of them could provide the information they needed. While returning, they were intercepted by one of Niccolo's spies, Bruno, who informed them that Claudia had been captured and imprisoned by remaining Borgia loyalists. Ezio and Niccolo immediately went to the location and fought their way through the diehards to rescue her. During the confrontation, the leader of the group revealed that they were working for Micheletto Carella. Seeing an opportunity, the assassins decided Micheletto could lead them to Cesare. They soon discovered him in Zagarolo, where he had gathered a force of about 200 men. The following day, Ezio and Niccolo marched there with roughly 100 assassin apprentices and thieves, and managed to capture Micheletto, then had him taken to Florence for interrogation by Niccolo, Piero Soderini, and Amerigo Vespucci. A few days later, on the day of Micheletto's scheduled execution, he escaped. Niccolo quickly informed Ezio, and the two decided to track him, believing he would eventually lead them to Cesare. Using the Apple of Eden, Ezio learned that Micheletto had fled toward Naples. Ezio immediately set out, accompanied by Niccolo and Leonardo da Vinci. Once in Naples, they encountered the courtesan Camilla, who told them that Micheletto had continued to Valencia. After arriving in Valencia, the group quickly noticed the ship Micheletto had used to reach the city. They questioned the ship's captain, who told them to look for Micheletto at the Lone Wolf Inn. The trio found the inn without difficulty, but as they entered its dark interior, they were ambushed. A fierce fight broke out, during which Ezio eventually recognised one of the attackers as Micheletto himself. Despite the confrontation, Micheletto and his followers managed to escape, before Ezio, Niccolo and Leonardo could pursue them. However, one of the thugs revealed that they were heading for the Castillo della Motta, where Cesare was being held prisoner. The assassins gave chase, but Micheletto had already gained too much of a lead and succeeded in freeing Cesare before they arrived. Upon hearing this, Ezio wished to return to Valencia immediately, driven by a vision he had experienced through the Apple of Eden, but Niccolo insisted that they rest first. Within the month, Ezio, Niccolo and Leonardo returned to Valencia, only to discover that Cesare had already begun rebuilding his power. More than 1,000 soldiers were camped outside the city, and a fleet of roughly a dozen warships filled the harbour. Before departing for Italy, Leonardo supplied the assassins with several handheld bombs designed to destroy the warships, explaining that he was growing homesick and wished to return home. Ezio and Niccolo devised a plan to dismantle Cesare's newly formed forces. While Niccolo infiltrated the camp of the diehards, Ezio went to the docks, where he used the bombs Leonardo had provided to destroy the enemy fleet. Once this task was complete, Ezio reunited with Niccolo at the street corner near the Lone Wolf Inn. From there, the two climbed onto the roof and looked down through an open skylight, observing Cesare and Micheletto as they argued over the recent failures. Cesare furiously berated Micheletto, blaming him for their misfortunes, until Micheletto, driven to desperation, lunged across the table at his master. Cesare reacted instantly by shooting Micheletto in the head. Ezio withdrew, hoping to intercept Cesare as he exited the building. However, Niccolo, leaning forward for a clearer view, accidentally dislodged a roof tile, alerting Cesare to their presence. Cesare drew a second pistol just as swiftly as the first, and he fired upward, striking Niccolo in the shoulder. Ezio considered giving chase, but Niccolo's wound was serious and demanded immediate attention. They found a local doctor, who determined that the bullet had passed cleanly through, and that Niccolo would recover enough to travel within 2 weeks. Before Ezio departed to continue the pursuit of Cesare, Niccolo wished him good luck. During the early 1500s, the Italian assassins were threatened by the Crows, an elite group created by Cesare Borgia to hunt the Brotherhood using assassin-like methods. Niccolo initially dismissed reports about them, but took the threat seriously after an attempt on Leonardo da Vinci's life. With the help of a powerful ally known as Lo Sparviero, the assassins began investigating the group. They discovered that the Crows were using a modified version of the Hidden Blade, and were led by a mysterious figure called Il Corvo. A man named Cyrus Favero, who posed as a merchant and informant, gained Niccolo's trust by supplying intelligence, only later to be revealed as Il Corvo himself, seeking revenge against the assassins. After Cyrus launched a coordinated attack on assassin forces in Rome, Niccolo and Lo Sparviero confronted him at the Castel Sant'Angelo. Lo Sparviero killed Cyrus and destroyed the crows, ending the threat. Niccolo later recorded the events so future assassins would remember the danger and its defeat. Niccolo entered the service of the Florentine government in 1494, working as a clerk and later as an ambassador. As a member of the Florentine Diplomatic Council, he was sent on missions to the courts of France, Spain and Rome between 1499 and 1512. During this period, he also secretly assisted the Spanish assassins in their fight against the Inquisition led by Tomás de Torquemada. From 1503 to 1506, Niccolo returned from Rome to Florence and took charge of organising the Florentine militia. He was openly distrustful of mercenaries, even though he sometimes relied on them. With the support of the newly appointed Gonfalonier of Florence, Piero Soderini, he created a standing militia made up of Florentine citizens. Niccolo believed that citizen soldiers would be far more loyal, since they were fighting for the success of their own republic rather than for personal profit. The militia proved effective when it defeated Pisa in 1509. However, in August of 1512, it was overcome by the Medici, who were backed by Spanish forces and Pope Julius II. After the Medici returned to power, Niccolo was removed from office and arrested in 1513 on charges of conspiracy. Although he was tortured in prison, he denied any involvement. He was eventually released and withdrew to his estate in Sant'Andrea in Percasina, where he lived in retirement. While living at the estate, Niccolo wrote The Prince, a relatively short work that he completed in just a few months. Over much of his life, he also worked on Discourses of Livy, a far more detailed and wide-ranging work that reflected his stronger republican views on government. Both The Prince and Discourses were later banned by the Church as they directly challenged many of its teachings. In April of 1519, Niccolo received a letter from Leonardo da Vinci informing him of his failing health. After passing the news on to Ezio, Niccolo travelled with him to Amboise, France, to visit their friend. They stayed for a week and were present at Leonardo's bedside when he died. By 1524, Niccolo had found success as a playwright. Ezio planned to attend one of his performances but missed it by 3 weeks while trying to finish a final letter for his wife, Sophia, to be read after his death. Around the same time, Chinese soldiers sent by the emperor pursued Ezio's guest, Xiao Jun. To keep his family safe, Ezio arranged for Sophia and their children, Flavia and Marcello, to stay at Niccolo's estate. Niccolo died on the 21st of June in 1527 at the age of 58. He was initially buried at the Basilica of Santa Croce in Florence, though his remains were later moved. His final burial place is unknown, so a cenotaph was erected at the basilica in his honour. Yusuf Tazim was born in the city of Bursa, the son of an assassin and his wife who was named Nalan and worked as a cook. His father was killed while on duty, but Yusuf grew up unaware of both his fate and his ties to the Assassin Brotherhood, as he was raised alone by his mother. In 1475, when Yusuf was 8 years old, he and his mother fled Bursa under the cover of night and made their way to Constantinople. Nalan found work cooking pastries for a vendor named Bakir bin Salih in the city's bazaar, and Yusuf helped out as a delivery boy. As money was tight and his mother struggled to support them, Yusuf began relying on his agility and quick hands to become a skilled pickpocket. One day, after stealing a heavy purse from a well-dressed woman, Yusuf was followed into a side street by an older and stronger boy who attacked him. Although Yusuf managed to break the boy's nose during the fight, he was ultimately overpowered. The boy then introduced himself as Dawood bin Hassan and explained that the purse Yusuf had stolen contained everything the woman owned after fleeing her abusive husband with her children. Yusuf was ashamed and so he returned the stolen money. Seeing the potential in him though, Dawood offered to train Yusuf so he could steal from the right people and help protect the small folk of the bazaar alongside him. In April of 1480, after witnessing Yusuf's growing involvement in these activities, Nalan decided it was time to tell him the truth about his father. She gave Yusuf his father's hidden blade, which had been returned to her by the Brotherhood after his death, and explained that his father had fought against those who sought to dominate others. 2 years later, Yusuf and Dawood planned to break into the home of the bazaar's new owner. Their goal was to steal enough to help the merchants, many of whom were being driven out after their rents were suddenly quadrupled. While quietly looting the upper floors, the owner unexpectedly returned home with a guest, trapping the two inside. When the foreign merchant went upstairs in search of alcohol to celebrate his newfound wealth, Dawood urged Yusuf, who was faster and more agile, and the only one carrying a hook blade, to escape with the loot while he stayed behind to delay the man. As the door opened, Dawood attacked, but the merchant ultimately slit his throat. A devastated Yusuf escaped into the night, saved only by his father's hook blade. Though Yusuf did not yet understand the merchant's talk of Templars and Assassins, he made a silent vow to watch for anyone bearing the strange red cross he had seen on the man's ring. By 1484, at just 17 years old, Yusuf had become a well-known figure in Constantinople, earning a reputation as both a vigilante and a petty thief. His activities eventually caught the attention of Ishak Pasha, the vizier and prominent assassin. Drawn in by Ishak's charisma and guidance, Yusuf joined the order shortly before his 20th birthday. In 1495, Yusuf travelled with Ishak and a small group of Ottoman assassins to Spain. Their mission was to support the Spanish Brotherhood in recovering Niccolo Polo's journal during a trade negotiation between the Spanish Inquisition and the Byzantine Templars. By the time they arrived, however, the exchange had already taken place, and the assassins walked straight into a trap, narrowly escaping with their lives. In 1502, Yusuf worked alongside a group of Venetian assassins in Greece in an effort to bring an Ottoman-Venetian war to an end. Their actions helped halt the fighting, leading to a short period of peace along their borders by 1503. That peace lasted until 1509, when the Templars regrouped under the banner of the ancient Byzantine Empire. Yusuf took a leading role in the renewed conflict, and his leadership during this struggle eventually earned him command of his guild in 1511. In 1511, the Ottoman Assassin Guild learned of Ezio's encounter with the Templars occupying the ancient assassin fortress of Mashhad. Yusuf personally went to meet the mentor at the Golden Horn. As he guided Ezio through the city, Yusuf explained the ongoing conflict between the Assassins and Templars in Constantinople, as well as the broader struggle between the Ottomans and Byzantines. He also briefly mentioned how dire things had been decades earlier, when the Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI had ordered assassins to be hunted down and killed on sight. After introducing Ezio to the local assassin guild in the Galata district, Yusuf showed him the hook blade, a standard tool used by the Ottoman assassins and one Yusuf claimed to have used since childhood. After demonstrating how it worked, the two climbed the Galata tower to take in the view before leaping down together in a leap of faith. As they made their way back to the guild, an assassin named Kasim approached them with urgent news. Two of their dens were under attack. Unable to be in two places at once, Yusuf sent Ezio to defend the Galata den while he headed to the Grand Bazaar. Although Ezio successfully protected the Galata den, Yusuf arrived too late to stop the attack at the bazaar, which was overrun by Templars. Ezio managed to regroup with him, and together they fought off several guards before setting out to reclaim the district. Once the den was secured and confirmed to be intact, Yusuf taught Ezio how to craft bombs and suggested that he seek out Piri Reis if he wanted to learn more. Ezio then revealed Niccolo Polo's journal and explained the significance of the Mashhad keys. While Yusuf had no prior knowledge of either, he advised Ezio to ask Piri Reis for directions to Niccolo and Maffeo Polo's old trading post. Not long after, Yusuf set out to meet Constantinople's allied factions, the mercenaries, thieves and Romanis. Since each group operated in different districts, Ezio offered to help coordinate with the Romanis, an offer Yusuf accepted with gratitude. Later in 1511, Yusuf and his fellow assassins uncovered a plot to assassinate Prince Suleiman shortly after his return from a pilgrimage. To protect him, they planned to infiltrate a cultural exhibition at Topkapi Palace by disguising themselves as Italian entertainers. Ezio joined them on the rooftops of the Hippodrome as they discussed the plan and offered his assistance. After knocking out several minstrels and taking their clothes, the assassins successfully blended into the event. While Ezio distracted the crowd and used his abilities to identify the hidden Byzantines, Yusuf and his men quietly eliminated the targets and concealed the bodies. The situation eventually unravelled when the Byzantines realised they were being hunted, and so they killed one of the palace guards. Yusuf threw off his disguise and cut down several attackers, while Ezio intercepted the final hidden Templar, killing him with the broken neck of his lute. After one of his assassins uncovered a shipment of firearms arriving at the harbour of Theodosius, Yusuf set out to investigate. Just outside the harbour, he ran into Ezio, who was already in the area, secretly following Tariq Barletti at Prince Suleiman's request. As Ezio considered how to get past the heavy security, the two witnessed a pair of janissaries harassing a nearby merchant and stealing his goods. Yusuf commented on the injustice of the situation, which led Ezio to suggest using the local heralds to stir up a riot. The chaos, he reasoned, would provide enough cover for him to slip inside the harbour. With the distraction in place, Ezio managed to infiltrate the port, where he soon overheard Manuel Paleologos speaking with Shakulu and Tariq. From their conversation, he learned that the weapons were being shipped to an unknown Templar stronghold. In late 1511, when Ezio prepared to sail for the Templar-controlled province of Cappadocia in pursuit of Manuel, Yusuf arrived with troubling news. The Great Chain had been raised, blocking all ships from leaving the harbour. To help Ezio escape, Yusuf provided him with a powerful explosive to destroy the chain, and assisted in fending off the ships sent to stop him. Before leaving, Ezio asked Yusuf to protect his beloved, Sophia Sartor, from any harm. Yusuf agreed, and along with other assassins, took up guard at Sophia's residence. Not long after, Byzantine Templars, secretly acting on Prince Ahmet's orders, raided her shop. Yusuf confronted them inside the store and managed to kill several attackers, but he was eventually struck from behind and mortally wounded. Sophia was taken captive by the remaining Templars. When Ezio returned from Cappadocia, he found Yusuf's body resting on a bench in Sophia's shop, the dagger still lodged in his back. Ezio gently removed the blade, closed Yusuf's eyes, and gave him his final rites, quietly telling him that he had earned his rest. Yusuf was later buried in a small cemetery near Galata Tower. At some point in his life, Yusuf fathered at least one child. By 2016, one of his descendants, Emiya, was kidnapped by the Templars, who hoped to uncover more about Yusuf's connection to Ezio by exploring Emiya's genetic memories in the Animus. Piri was born in Gallipoli and took to the sea at a young age. By his early teens, he was already sailing as a privateer alongside his uncle Kamal. Together they took part in several expeditions across the Mediterranean, although their activities were often described as being of dubious legality. By the time Piri reached his 20s, he and his uncle decided to leave privateering behind and pursue a more respectable path by joining the naval forces of Sultan Bayezid II. Serving as a navigator in the Ottoman Navy, Piri fought in the Ottoman-Venetian War between 1499 and 1503, a conflict in which he lost many close friends. After the war ended in 1503, Piri chose to step away from military life and took leave from the navy. He settled in Constantinople, where he turned his attention toward more scholarly pursuits. Setting up a small workshop in the Grand Bazaar, he began focusing on the study of cartography. Later that same year, a group of Italian assassins sent from Rome by Ezio infiltrated Piri Reis' shop. Their goal was to steal his maps of the New World, hoping to use them to track and counter the Templars' expansion into newly discovered lands. Despite his earlier run-ins with the assassins, Piri joined the Ottoman Assassin Brotherhood in 1506, serving as both a scholar and a technician. Over time, he rose through the ranks and eventually became a master assassin. Having seen firsthand how artificial borders divided the many nations he travelled through, Piri was drawn to the assassin philosophy, which he believed represented the truest form of intellectual freedom. Drawing on his experience as a sailor, Piri designed a range of specialised bombs and casings specifically for assassin use. He sold these from his workshop on the condition that the buyers were willing to learn how to use them properly. In 1511, Yusuf informed Piri of Ezio's arrival in Constantinople, and the two met shortly thereafter. Yusuf had sent Ezio to Piri to ask for directions to Niccolo and Maffeo Polo's old trading post, which Piri was happy to provide. He also introduced Ezio to various bomb designs and offered to train him in their use. As the Assassin Brotherhood carried out contracts across the Mediterranean, Piri would occasionally ask for their help in surveying different regions to support his cartographic work. Whenever a new city came under assassin control, he would receive rare bomb ingredients from the area and make them available for sale in his Grand Bazaar shop. When Ezio uncovered the shipment of firearms intended to arm the Byzantine Templar forces, he reported it to Prince Suleiman I. In response, Suleiman ordered Piri to transport Ezio safely to Derinkuyu, the location of the Templar headquarters. Although the Janissaries attempted to stop all departing ships by raising the Great Chain across the Golden Horn, Ezio destroyed it with a bomb with 50 times the kick of a standard assassin explosive, before setting the Ottoman fleet ablaze with Greek fire. Piri merely commented on Ezio's lack of subtlety before setting sail. After arriving in Cappadocia in 1512, Piri waited aboard his ship while Ezio went ashore to eliminate the Byzantine heir and Templar leader Manuel Palaiologos and recover the final Mashav key. Once Ezio returned, having thrown much of the underground city into chaos by destroying its armoury, Piri guided the ship back to Constantinople. By 1513, Piri continued his work as a cartographer and produced what would become his most famous map, featuring one of the earliest accurate depictions of the eastern coast of South America. By the age of 80, he had already become a legend within the Ottoman Navy and was officially granted the title of Reis, meaning Admiral. Dogan served under the leadership of Master Assassin Yusuf Tazim and earned a reputation as one of his most trusted lieutenants. Through his loyal and capable service, Dogan came to be highly regarded by Yusuf among the rest of the Brotherhood. In 1511, when Ezio arrived in Constantinople, Dogan first met him during a visit to Galata headquarters, where Yusuf introduced the mentor to the local assassins. Not long afterward, the Byzantine Templars launched a coordinated attack on the Brotherhood, striking both the assassin den near Galata Tower and another close to the Grand Bazaar. While Yusuf rushed to defend the den near the bazaar, Ezio joined Dogan in rallying the assassins to protect the Galata stronghold. After successfully repelling the attack, Dogan stayed behind to tend to the wounded assassins, while Ezio left to assist Yusuf elsewhere in the city. Following Yusuf's death, Dogan and several members of the guild gathered at the cemetery near Galata Tower to lay their fallen leader to rest and honour his memory. When Ezio arrived, he reflected on how little time they had to properly grieve, as the Templar leader, Ottoman Prince Ahmet, was already moving against assassin interests. Knowing of the trust that Yusuf had placed in Dogan, Ezio named him as Yusuf's successor. Dogan accepted the role and rose to lead the Ottoman Assassin Brotherhood. When Ezio arrived in Constantinople in 1511, Yusuf offered to have Azize act as Ezio's guide while he explored the city. Ezio declined the offer, choosing instead to travel on his own. In 1512, Azize was assigned to help protect Sophia Sartor's bookshop alongside Yusuf and the other assassin lieutenants. When Byzantine Templars raided the shop, both Azize and Sophia were taken captive. Shortly afterward, Azize was dressed to resemble Sophia and taken to the top of Galata Tower, where she was held by a Byzantine guard. Ezio eventually rescued her, initially believing that she was Sophia. While Ezio and Sophia were away at Masyaf, Azize looked after the bookshop. She reorganised the collection and improved its layout, drawing in more customers than the shop had ever seen before. After Ezio and Sophia returned, Sophia agreed to let Azize take full control of the business, and Ezio arranged for the Brotherhood to purchase it from her. Azize embraced her role as a full-time shopkeeper, turning the bookshop into an essential source of knowledge for the Assassin Brotherhood. For the next three assassins, it makes sense to just group them together, as there is limited information about each and much of it overlaps. The first is Kasim, a master assassin of the Ottoman Brotherhood and a trusted lieutenant under their leader, Yusuf. Kasim was among the assassins who first welcomed Ezio when he arrived at the Galata headquarters. He later played a key role in warning both Ezio and Yusuf about the Byzantine Templar attack on the assassin dens. The next two are Evraniki and Irini, both members of the Ottoman Assassin Brotherhood in the early 16th century. They served under Yusuf and later under his successor Dogan. In mid-1512, they were present at Yusuf's burial, where Ezio formally appointed Dogan as the new leader of the guild. During the ceremony, Evraniki commented that it would be an honour to fight under Dogan's leadership. Mario Auditore was born in Monteregione on March 19, 1434. On the night of his birth, a Florentine mercenary hired to assassinate the Auditore family managed to infiltrate the villa. While the midwives were attending to Mario's mother, the mercenary was discovered dead in the nursery. His death was never explained, especially since Mario was the only person in the room at the time. When Mario was 2 years old, his younger brother Giovanni was born. Coming from a long line of notable assassins, Mario followed the same path and began his training at a very young age. At just 6 years old, Mario played a key role in the Battle of Angari. While travelling to Monterci with his father, he spotted dust clouds rising along the road and alerted the condottiero Micheletto Attendolo. The clouds signalled a surprise advance by Milanese troops, and thanks to the warning, the Florentines were able to stop the attack and secure victory. Despite helping the Florentines in that moment, Mario spent much of his later life defending Monteregione from repeated Florentine attacks on the town. In 1454, after Mario's younger brother Giovanni moved to Florence to pursue a career in banking, and following their father's death, Mario became the sole ruler of Monteregione. He chose to remain at the villa and stayed in contact with Giovanni through letters, famously writing that he preferred fighting like a man to filling out balance sheets. After that, it's implied he rarely saw the rest of his family. Under Mario's leadership, Monteregione entered a period of prosperity. He opened new shops and guilds throughout the city and significantly strengthened its defences to better withstand Florentine attacks. That same year, Mario uncovered a Florentine informant, Luciano Pezzati, living within Monteregione. Alongside his own mercenaries, Mario confronted Pezzati and his men. Mario duelled Luciano and narrowly defeated him, having the spy dragged back to the villa. From him, Mario learned that Florence was preparing an attack on Monteregione, led by the condottiero Federico da Montefeltro. Despite this threat, Mario's leadership ensured that the city held strong, and the invasion ultimately failed. Later on, Luciano confessed the real reason behind the siege. The Florentines were searching for a mysterious artifact hidden within the city. Mario was intrigued by this, and so he gathered architects and historians to investigate and eventually uncover records showing that the city well had once been drained and excavated years earlier. Mario descended into the well alongside a miner and several of his men. At first they found nothing, but Mario noticed the miner's flame flickering near the back wall, suggesting a hidden opening. Pushing against it, they revealed a secret corridor filled with deadly traps. Several of his men were killed, and Mario himself was struck by a swinging pendulum, leaving him blinded in his left eye and scarred across the face. Despite their injuries, the group eventually reached a wooden box hidden deep within the well. A mysterious presence spoke to Mario's men, telling them that their pain was temporary, and urging them to ignore it. Convinced the presence would heal them, the men wanted to open the box. Mario, however, believed there was a reason it had been hidden for so long, and that opening it would be a mistake. This disagreement caused his men to turn against him, forcing Mario to strike them down. Though deeply curious about the box's contents, he refused to open it. Instead, Mario carried it back to the villa, ignoring the artifact's promises to heal him. After storing it there temporarily, he summoned his brother to retrieve it, dismissing the object as the Brotherhood's problem. In 1476, Giovanni and his sons Federico and Patricio were executed on false charges of treason by Rodrigo Borgia, leader of the Italian Templars. Giovanni's surviving son Ezio fled Florence with his mother Maria and his sister Claudia, heading for the safety in Monteregione. Along the way they were attacked by Vieri de' Pazzi, but Ezio's uncle arrived with his mercenaries and rescued them. When they got to the villa, Mario revealed Ezio's assassin lineage and began training him in combat, tactics and discipline so he could fight the Templars and protect his family. Despite Mario's objections, Ezio later planned to take his mother and sister to Spain, which caused a rift between them. Feeling remorseful, Ezio followed Mario to San Gimignano and helped him kill Vieri de' Pazzi. When Ezio disrespected the corpse, Mario intervened and reminded him to honour the dead. After their victory, Mario introduced Ezio to the assassin sanctuary beneath the villa and explained the importance of the codex. In 1488, Mario met with other assassin leaders in Venice to intercept the Apple of Eden from Rodrigo Borgia. They found Ezio already battling him, and together the assassins drove Rodrigo away, recovering the artifact in the process. Mario then revealed to Ezio that his allies were all assassins, and Ezio was formally inducted into the Brotherhood that night. Mario later studied the apple with Ezio, Leonardo da Vinci and Niccolo Machiavelli. When the artifact was activated, Mario and Machiavelli were overwhelmed by its power, prompting Mario to urge Ezio to safeguard it at Forli under Caterina Sforza's protection. He also invited Leonardo to Monteregione. In 1498, Mario witnessed Ezio assassinate Girolamo Savonarola and addressed the people of Florence. Shortly afterward, Ezio asked Mario to travel to Spain to support the assassin cause there, and Mario agreed. In December of 1499, Mario, Ezio, and several other assassins met at the villa to uncover the secret hidden within the codex. Ezio travelled to Rome to confront Rodrigo and enter the vault, while Mario and the other assassins created unrest across the city to divert the papal forces. Afterward, Ezio exited the chamber and reunited with Mario in the Sistine Chapel, where Mario remarked that such artifacts were too dangerous to be wielded by humans. As they escaped the Vatican together, Mario urged Ezio to throw the Apple of Eden into the Tiber River. When Ezio hesitated, Mario took responsibility for the artifact himself, promising to safeguard it until the right decision could be made. The two returned to Monteregione on New Year's Day in 1500. Along the way, Ezio described his experience in the vault, and Mario advised him not to dwell on prophecies that concerned a distant future. Mario also proudly pointed out the new cannons he had installed to strengthen the city's defences. At dawn on January 2nd, Cesare Borgia launched a surprise assault on Monteregione. Mario planned to guard the apple and lead the defence while Ezio disabled the enemy artillery. During the fighting, Mario was gravely wounded and collapsed at the city's gates. Cesare Borgia confronted him, shot him dead while he still held the apple, and had his head displayed as a threat meant for Ezio. Giovanni Auditore was born in Monteregione in 1436, 2 years after his older brother Mario. From a young age, both brothers were trained in the ways of the assassins, though Giovanni also received additional education in banking and other academic subjects. During his youth in Monteregione, Giovanni also explored the Auditore family crypt. In 1450, Giovanni met and married Maria de' Mozzi, eventually revealing his secret involvement with the Assassin Brotherhood to her. Over the next several years, they had 4 children. Their first son, Federico, was born in 1454, followed by Ezio in 1459, Claudia in 1461, and Patricio in 1463. In 1454, Giovanni assisted his fellow assassins in dealing with a Shroud of Eden. After Mario uncovered the artifact hidden beneath Monteregione, he summoned Giovanni to remove it from the city and place it under the protection of the Brotherhood. In 1455, Giovanni had his first encounter with a young Lorenzo de' Medici, the grandson of Cosimo. After Lorenzo fell into the Arno River and nearly drowned, Giovanni jumped in and saved his life. This act forged a lasting bond between the two, and Lorenzo later became both a close friend and patron to Giovanni, strengthening the ties between their families. Around 1456, Giovanni represented a woman named Paola in court after she killed a guard who attacked her. He argued successfully that she had acted in self-defense, and so Giovanni won the case. Over time, Giovanni revealed his identity as an assassin to his eldest son Federico, whom he began training in the Brotherhood's ways. He also confided in Lorenzo, carrying out several secret missions for him, often without the knowledge of the rest of his family. In 1476, Giovanni confronted Rodrigo Borgia in a Florentine alley. Although Giovanni killed 2 of Rodrigo's guards and subdued a third, Rodrigo managed to escape. Giovanni turned the surviving guard over to Uberto Alberti for interrogation. Whilst under torture, the captive revealed that the Templars planned to assassinate Galeazzo Maria Sforza, the Duke of Milan. Giovanni rushed to Milan to stop the plot but arrived too late. He avenged the Duke by killing some of the assassins, while the Duke's guards dealt with the rest. After searching one of the dead conspirators, Giovanni found coins marked with Venice's winged lion. He travelled to Venice, infiltrated St. Mark's Basilica, and overheard Marco and Silvio Barbarigo arranging communication with their master in Rome. Giovanni followed their courier and cornered him after a fierce struggle, but the man unalived himself rather than reveal information. Giovanni recovered a sealed letter bearing the Barbarigo crest and brought it back to Florence, where he and Lorenzo discovered it was encrypted. Later, Giovanni was summoned by Lorenzo and Uberto. Before leaving home, he reassured his wife Maria, who was concerned that their son Ezio had begun to notice Giovanni's frequent nighttime absences. At the meeting, Uberto falsely claimed the letter could not be decoded and insisted Giovanni deliver it personally to Rome, which Giovanni agreed to do. Whilst in Rome, Giovanni traced the letter to Rodrigo Borgia and confronted him in St. Peter's Basilica. Rodrigo praised Giovanni's abilities and attempted to recruit him into the Templar Order, but Giovanni refused. He fought off Rodrigo's men despite being badly outnumbered, though Rodrigo wounded him with a thrown knife and escaped. Giovanni returned to Florence injured and confided in Maria that the Duke's murder was likely part of a bigger conspiracy. Before he could explain further, Federico warned him that Father Antonio Maffei had arrived with armed guards. Giovanni then escaped the palazzo through a hidden passage, asking his son to help cover the exit. Around this period, Giovanni uncovered proof that Francesco de Pazzi had committed murder and arranged for Uberto to have him arrested. After Ezio became involved in a fight with Vieri de Pazzi on the Ponte Vecchio, Giovanni reprimanded his son for his recklessness, while fondly noting that Ezio reminded him of himself in his youth. Giovanni then asked Ezio to deliver a letter to Lorenzo, but when Lorenzo was found to be temporarily absent from Florence, Ezio was instead sent on several other errands. While Ezio was away, armed guards acting on Uberto's orders stormed the Auditore home. Giovanni and his sons Federico and Patricio were arrested and imprisoned in the tower overlooking the Piazza della Signoria. Ezio later climbed the clock tower to speak with his father, who instructed him to retrieve documents hidden behind a fireplace in their home and deliver them to Uberto to clear the family's name. Ezio followed his father's instructions, taking Giovanni's assassin gear and presented the evidence to Uberto. The following day, Giovanni was horrified to see Uberto standing beside Rodrigo Borgia, denying that he had ever received the documents. Giovanni and his sons were condemned to death for treason. Giovanni angrily vowed that Uberto and his new Templar allies would one day pay for their betrayal. After the executions, the bodies of Giovanni, Federico and Patricio were meant to be dumped in the Arno River. However, Ezio, with the help of Cristina Vespucci, recovered their remains and honoured them with a proper funeral, sending them off on burning funeral boats along the river. Maria was born in 1432 into the wealthy and influential Mozzi family of Florence. Her parents were extremely protective, sheltering her from much of the outside world. Resenting this control, Maria deliberately sought out the company of the city's lower classes, wanting a life beyond the confines set for her. Eventually, her parents reached a compromise and allowed her to open a bakery inside the family palazzo. About a week later, she met Giovanni Auditore there. Swept up by Giovanni's charm, the two grew close and were married in 1450. After the marriage, Maria moved in with Giovanni, and over the years they had 4 children. During the early years of their marriage, Giovanni was inducted into the Assassin Brotherhood and asked Maria to help keep his secret from their children. Not long after, Maria herself was initiated into the order. By 1476, Maria had become a patron of several local artists, including Leonardo da Vinci. After some time, she eventually introduced Ezio to Leonardo. I'm not going to continue at the moment with the rest of Maria's story, because from this point on, her and Claudia's story are linked. And so to avoid repeating myself, I'll go into more detail when I explain Claudia's story. Born around 1456, Federico Auditore grew up living a comfortable life with his family in the Palazzo Auditore in Florence. He was originally trained to become a banker at a Medici bank, but he quickly earned a reputation as a notorious slacker. At one point, he even hid a sack of the bank's money on the roof as a joke. Luckily for Federico, being an Auditore meant he was simply removed from the payroll, rather than facing more serious consequences. As the eldest child in the family, Federico took his role as a protector seriously. When Antonio Maffei arrived at the palazzo in an attempt to arrest Giovanni for the first time, Federico managed to stall the guards long enough for Giovanni to escape, insisting that his father wasn't home. When the men forced their way inside and found only Federico and his mother, Federico stood his ground, kicked them out of the palazzo, and warned them never to doubt an Auditore again. In 1476, while Ezio was fighting Vieri de' Pazzi, a member of a rival noble family, Federico showed up to back his brother. He proved himself to be a capable fighter, and once they won the brawl, Federico told Ezio to loot their defeated opponents for money to pay for his injuries. Afterward, Federico sent Ezio to the doctor to get patched up. Once Ezio was treated, Federico challenged him to a race, and the two climbed to the top of a nearby church to take in the view of Florence. The next morning, Federico relaxed at home while Ezio ran errands for the family. Later that same day, however, Federico was beaten and arrested by the city guards along with his father and younger brother. Federico was held overnight as Ezio desperately tried to secure his family's release. The following morning, Federico was executed alongside his father and brother. That night, Ezio and Cristina secretly transported his body by boat so they could be given a proper burial. Years later, Rodrigo Borgia revealed to Ezio that Federico and Petruccio never needed to die, claiming he had ordered their executions simply to make a point. Claudia Auditore was born on January 2nd, 1461 in Florence. By 1476, she was betrothed to Duccio de Luca, a member of another Florentine noble family. Over time, Claudia began hearing rumours of Duccio's infidelity, which of course left her upset. Noticing this, her brother Ezio confronted Duccio on her behalf, confirmed the rumours, and beat him in a fight. After that, Claudia ended the engagement. After her brother and father were arrested, Claudia, along with the family's maid Annetta, stayed behind to care for Maria and hide within the palazzo until Ezio returned to find their home destroyed. At Ezio's request, Annetta then took Claudia and Maria to her sister Paola's home, while Ezio went to the Palazzo della Signoria in search of their imprisoned family members. After Ezio succeeded in his objective, he took Claudia and Maria with him to Monteregione. Ezio's decision to stay at the city rather than go to Spain frustrated Claudia, who had little interest in staying behind. Not long after, Mario put Claudia in charge of Monteregione's finances, asking her to keep detailed records. At first, the responsibility infuriated her, especially since she was used to a far more comfortable lifestyle. Over time though, she grew into the role, even as she missed Ezio while he travelled across Italy hunting down Templars. As Ezio returned from his journeys with money and resources, Claudia's organisational skills helped to rebuild the city. The town gradually flourished again, becoming livelier and more populated, and during this period, Claudia married Mario's captain, and by 1488 she was expecting their child. Then in 1499, the Italian Brotherhood, including Ezio and Mario, began preparing for a mission to Rome to eliminate Rodrigo Borgia. Before the operation began, Claudia volunteered to lead a team of assassins to Naples to recover a hidden stockpile of weapons left behind by their father, which could prove crucial on the mission. When they arrived, however, they discovered that the Auditore storehouse had already been raided and the weapons stolen by mercenaries. After meeting with Piero of the Thieves Guild, Claudia and her team learned that Armilia Godato, a long-time enemy of the Auditore family, had taken the weapons to a hideout in the hills beneath Mount Vesuvius. The assassins infiltrated the stronghold and overheard a heated argument between Armilia and her lieutenant, Il Bruto, before Armilia then left with the stolen weapons. The team defeated Il Bruto, who revealed that Armilia had struck a deal with the Templars. In exchange for keeping the weapons out of assassin hands, they promised her control over Naples. Choosing to spare his life, Claudia and her team returned to the city and located Armilia's secret warehouse, using the information Il Bruto had provided. Once there, they eliminated her guards, and Claudia personally killed Armilia. With the weapons recovered, Claudia and the assassins delivered them to Bartolomeo di Alviano and his men. This allowed them to create a diversion in Rome, giving Ezio the opportunity to confront Rodrigo Borgia directly. On January 1st, 1500, when Ezio and Mario returned from their journey to Rome, Claudia greeted her brother outside the villa and immediately asked whether Rodrigo Borgia was finally dead, but Ezio avoided giving her a straight answer. With Claudia's birthday coming the next day, she hoped to keep the celebration a surprise for him, but the entire town was already busy preparing, making the secret hard to keep. Later that evening, Claudia joined Ezio and the others in Mario's study. There, Ezio explained why he had chosen to spare Rodrigo's life and shared what he had discovered in the vault beneath the Vatican. The next morning, on Claudia's birthday, Monteregione was suddenly besieged by the Borgia forces, led by Rodrigo's son, Cesare. Claudia helped secure her mother and several townspeople inside the sanctuary beneath the villa. However, when she left the villa, she was discovered and attacked by Borgia soldiers. Claudia was rescued by Ezio, who was badly wounded but managed to guide the survivors through a secret passage beneath Monteregione. Once they reached safety, Ezio told Claudia and Maria to return to Florence for their own protection. However, both refused, determined to support Ezio, and eventually followed him to Rome instead. Claudia and Maria made their way to the assassin headquarters on Tiber Island in Rome, where they then met with Machiavelli. Suspecting that Ezio might be visiting the courtesans at the Rosa in Fiore, Niccolo sent the two women there to look for him. While speaking with the courtesans, Claudia and Maria were soon joined by Ezio, who had just returned from a failed attempt to rescue the brothel's owner. With no one left to lead the courtesans, Claudia volunteered to take over the brothel's operations, a decision that clearly irritated Ezio. At Maria's urging, however, he agreed. Under Claudia's leadership, the courtesans began gathering intelligence on the Borgia for the Assassin Brotherhood. Their first assignment was to locate Caterina Sforza, who had been captured during the siege of Monteregione. Once the information was secured, Claudia met with Ezio and the other guild leaders at the assassin hideout, where they agreed their next goal was to eliminate both Rodrigo and Cesare. Claudia continued running the Rosa Inferiore for the next couple of years, and in 1503 she returned to the assassin hideout with new information, revealing that a senator named Egidio Trochet was closely tied to Cesare's banker. She pointed Ezio in the senator's direction and sent her courtesans to follow him when he went after the banker, collecting the stolen money and bringing it back to the brothel. Unfortunately, the courtesans were tailed by Borgia guards who infiltrated the brothel. Determined to protect her girls, Claudia armed herself with a knife and single-handedly took down the guards, just moments before Ezio arrived. Impressed by her resolve and skill, Ezio summoned Claudia to the hideout again in August of 1503. There in the ceremony hall, Ezio formally inducted Claudia into the Assassin Brotherhood in front of the other assassins, and then she completed her initiation by performing a leap of faith into the Tiber River from the top of the hideout. Not long after, Claudia informed Ezio that a French cardinal, Georges d'Amboise, was planning to meet with Cesare. Ezio left to disrupt the meeting, and Claudia later joined him in eliminating the last of Cesare's supporters. She also witnessed Cesare's eventual arrest by Fabio Orsini and the Papal Guard. The following year, Maria's health declined, and she began speaking again of Giovanni, Federico and Patricio, before eventually passing away from illness. With Maria gone, Claudia assumed full control of the courtesans. Not long after, however, she was captured by a group of remaining Borgia loyalists, led by a Templar spy named Bruno. Bruno posed as an ally of Niccolo, and deliberately led both him and Ezio to the location where Claudia was being held, claiming that it was a secret Templar hideout. Ezio and Niccolo managed to defeat the Borgia fanatics and rescue Claudia. After the ordeal, Claudia chose to step down as Madame of the Rosa Inferiore and returned to Florence to recover under Paola's care. Claudia remained active within the Assassin Brotherhood, serving as one of Ezio's trusted advisors. By 1509, she returned to Monteregione to oversee renovations at the Villa Auditore. Unfortunately, the workers she hired spent more time loitering than rebuilding, and little progress was made. When Ezio joined her a few weeks later, Claudia told him about a music box hidden in the villa's attic and sent him on a small treasure hunt. Ezio eventually solved the puzzle and discovered a painting of himself, Claudia and Maria, created by Leonardo da Vinci. While Ezio was occupied with the hunt, Claudia's newly hired assistant, Serafina, secretly a member of the Court of Hermes, led bandits in an attack on Monteregione in an attempt to wipe out the Auditore family. Both Claudia and Ezio survived the assassination attempts, and Ezio chased the attackers through the city's underground tunnels. Ezio left to recover the artifacts, while Claudia stayed behind to once again oversee the villa's repairs after the attack. In 1510, Ezio uncovered a letter written by Giovanni that revealed the location of Altair's library. Although he didn't show the letter to Claudia, Ezio told her of his plan to travel to Masyaf in search of the library. Claudia wished him luck and asked that he write to her from time to time. With Ezio gone, she temporarily assumed leadership of the Italian Brotherhood. While Ezio was away, Claudia dealt with the growing concerns within the Brotherhood, including the declining health of Pope Julius II, who had served as the assassin's protector for many years. She also received a letter from Desiderius Aramus, a Dutch scholar and the leader of the Northern European Brotherhood. In late 1512, Ezio returned to Rome with Sophia, who had become his wife after they married in Venice. Claudia shared encouraging news with him, revealing that Giovanni di Lorenzo de' Medici, the son of Ezio's late ally Lorenzo de' Medici, was close to ascending to the papacy. She also showed him Aramis's letter. Claudia congratulated Ezio on his marriage, approving of Sophia despite jokingly noting that she was a Venetian. Ezio then revealed his intention to retire from the assassin order, and announced that he had chosen Lodovico Ariosto as his successor as mentor. Claudia strongly objected, pointing out Ariosto's connections to Alfonso d'Este and his wife Lucrezia Borgia. She was even more frustrated to hear that Ezio planned to step away from assassin life altogether to build a vineyard and focus on writing. Claudia eventually remarried and settled in Rome with her new husband. Although she was initially upset with Ezio, she came to enjoy visiting him and Sophia at their villa in the Tuscan countryside. Over time, she grew especially fond of her niece and nephew, Flavia and Marcello. Despite being 15 years older than Sophia, Claudia never took on a motherly role toward her sister-in-law. Instead, the two formed a close friendship. Sophia would occasionally bring her children to Rome to visit Claudia, including one such visit in 1524, not long before Ezio's death.